Alrighty. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the first Solar Savers webinar. I would firstly like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands that we are working and attending from this evening, and we pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging, and to those who may be joining us this evening. My name is Anastasia, and I help run the Solar Savers program. Joining me this evening is our program manager, Anna Imberger, along with Kez Hassan, joining us from our solar installation company, EcoEnergy. So tonight we have, let's have a look, approximately 50 people joining us from our 8 participating councils in our first joint online information session, which means we will have questions and feedback from across a significant part of metropolitan Melbourne. Our session tonight will run for approximately 1 hour and 15 minutes, and we will also be recording the webinar. So if you do need to leave at any point, you will be able to rewatch the remainder. Before we get started, I'd like to give you a quick overview of what we'll be covering tonight. So bear with me. Perfect. So this evening, we will be covering how the Solar Saver program works. We will have a bit of a discussion about COVID-19 and the stage 4 restrictions in Melbourne and how they're impacting our industry. We'll then go through briefly how solar and batteries work. The bulk of our session tonight will then be a frequently asked questions session. So this will include questions about the estimated savings from solar, the rebate offers that are currently available to you, feed-in tariffs, how to size your system and shading, etc. And then we'll close up the session this evening discussing the kind of products and prices that our program offers. So if you have any questions throughout the webinar, you can text them through to 0436 333 013. So I'll put that number up nice and big there for you. It will be displayed over the next few slides, and as you'll see, it's above our heads as well. So we'll pause about halfway through the webinar tonight, and it'll give us a moment to look through those questions, and then we'll come back and we'll be able to answer them. So before we hear from Anna and Kez, I'd like to do a quick practice using polls. We'll be using polls only a couple of times throughout the webinar, so we're just going to do a practice one. So I'm going to launch that in a moment, and I'll ask you to select the correct answer. All right, so practice poll is launched. We're asking you, what day is it today, Monday or Thursday? All right, looking good. 40 people, 42. Excellent. So it looks like most of us have a good idea of how to use the Zoom poll. So we'll be using them in a few minutes just to kind of gauge the audience's knowledge of solar panels and batteries. So I'll close that one there for now. Perfect. All right, so I'll now allow Anna to introduce herself and tell us a little bit more about the program.
Yep. Hi everyone, I'm Anna. I've been involved with Solar Savers since it started in 2017 and as a program leader now for nearly 2 years. So we're a non-for-profit organisation and we exist through the support of local councils like yours. So we have currently 8 councils in Metro Melbourne participating in our bulk buy program. And it's all about, Solar Savers is all about helping households navigate the complexities of solar and making the process of installing a PV system easy. So whether households wish to install solar to reduce their bills or for environmental benefits, we can help. I suppose the key benefit of our program is that we've done the hard work for you. So we conducted a public tender last year to select our installers, and through this process, we evaluated numerous companies who responded. We assessed their safety procedures, products, warranties, workmanship, and internal processes. And so based on that, we selected EcoEnergy, who are with us today, but also Maston Rangers Solar, and they service our regional council in Hepburn Shire. So these stores were selected because of their approach to safety, the quality of products they offer, and the ability to deliver this all at a fair price to you.
Beautiful. Thanks, Anna. And I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about the other benefits of installing through the Solar Savers program.
Yeah, sure. So through our program as well, we conduct technical and safety audits for on 5% of all installations. And these audits cover a cross-section of our council areas, different installers, system sizes, and they check that the system's installed correctly, well, safely, obviously, and to industry standards. Echo Energy also conduct their own in-house audits. Another benefit of going through Solar Savers is that you've got access to independent advice from our team. So when you call up, you can speak to Anastasia, and she can look at your electricity bills and assess them before passing on to Echo. And we can check whether it actually makes financial sense for you and your family to install solar. And finally, you can be assured that you've got the backing from your local council.
Wonderful. Thanks, Anna. So I guess to summarize that, if you were to register with Solar Savers, you will be connected to our trusted installers who can provide you with an obligation-free quote. You will also have the extra reassurance that the program is supported by your council and that we conduct extra technical and safety audits. You also have access to the team at Solar Savers if you have any questions along the way. And so to help you decide if you do want to install solar, and to answer some of the most common questions that all of us receive regarding solar, we're now going to introduce our guest, Kez, from Eco Energy. Kez, before we get stuck into the questions, can you give us some background information about yourself and Eco?
Yeah, thanks, Anastasia. Well, firstly, thank you for having me, and it's great that we've got a good captive audience to this evening. So, yeah, Eco Energy has been around since 2007, and we're 49% owned by Energy Australia. I've been with the company for just shy of 2.5 years now. My background is an engineering background, and yeah, now with solar, it's fantastic for people to save in Australia. So I've been in Australia for 6 years and been in the solar industry for almost 6 years as well.
Awesome. So you've got a really great expertise behind you. Thanks, Kez. And so I guess the first thing that we wanted to touch on this evening was the current COVID restrictions in Victoria and how these are impacting the solar industry. So the sector is currently seeking clarification from the government on what the restrictions mean for installations. Currently, as it stands, installations are proceeding, and we're going to briefly now explain to you how our processes are essentially contactless. So you can register for Solar Savers online or over the phone, and any questions that you have can be answered in a similar way, online or over the phone. Your initial consultation with Echo and quoting and installation are all also virtually contactless. However, I will let Kez talk to this point a little bit further.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Anastasia. So, yeah, everything's contactless with us at the moment, so there's no fear there, and we can pretty much get a view of your roof from our satellite imagery and photos that you provide us to be able to work out what's viable for your home. Yeah, we're following all the restrictions in place, so it's pretty much business as usual for us. And the benefit to you as an end user of the solar is that at the moment it's around about 6 to 10 week time frame for installation. So hopefully we come out of this in 6 weeks, well, short of 6 weeks now, and we're pretty much business as usual. So with restrictions and all that contactless, at least it gives you that security that we're doing everything above board.
Awesome. Thank you, Kez. And we'll touch during the further questions that we have, we'll kind of touch on COVID and its implications for this process a little bit further. But to now get into why we're all really here, which is to find out more about solar, I was hoping that, Kez, you could give us a bit of an overview on how solar works. Before you do that, I'm going to launch one of our polls. And this is to gauge our audience's knowledge on how much you know about solar already. So we'll get that one going. Perfect. So we've got the question here, how much do you already know about solar? We've got a couple of options there for you to select. I'll just give that a moment to... All right, I reckon that looks close to it. So I'll let you have a look at that one, Kez, and I'll jump to our slideshow to help with your explanation of solar.
Yep.
And that poll, and I'll pass on to you, Kez.
Excellent. So hopefully everyone can see the screen. So in essence, the solar system, as if we start at point 1 of that slide there, the light comes in from the sun, hits down on the panels, or the sunlight into DC current, also known as direct current. And then that feeds into your inverter box, and that inverter converts your DC, your direct current, to alternating current. And alternating current is everything that your house uses. So your fridge, your washing machine, your lights is all powered by alternating current, AC. And any excess that you have is then pushed back into the grid there at full. So any excess power that you don't use during the day is you get a credit on your electricity bill. Any excess as well, you can look at adding a battery, and I believe that's the next slide.
It is indeed. So I'll pop this one up again. Launch polls. This one is gauging your knowledge about batteries. So I'm guessing it might look something similar to the previous one. And as that calculates, I'll get on to the next slide for Kez.
Lovely.
All right.
So that, as you can see, pretty much the solar is doing everything that it did on the previous slide. It does what it needs to do during the day. The battery just literally sits in where your inverter is there. So it talks with the inverter and it captures any of the excess solar that you're pushing back into the grid. And then you can then use it at night. Also gives you backup power as well. So if the grid goes down or you've got grid failures or power cuts a lot in your area, then that's a worthwhile investment for you as well.
Okay, great. Thanks, Kez. So we thought we would start with the most common question you receive about solar. So what would you say that is based on your experience?
Sorry, the two top questions, did you say?
Yeah, well, the most common question you receive, yeah.
So I guess it's around price and quality, definitely, at the moment.
Wonderful.
Okay.
So I think we'll be getting to price a little bit later in the presentation. So maybe you could talk to that quality question that you get.
Yep, sure. So in terms of the quality, as Anastasia and Annie have already mentioned, Eco Energy have had to tender for this with the councils, and I believe we work now with up to 20 councils across Victoria. So in terms of the quality there, we tick all the boxes because, as you can imagine, most councils are very risk averse. They don't want to be taking risks and recommending to their local residents a dodgy solar company. They want to make sure that the quality is there. So part of their due diligence process is that the quality, it ticks all the boxes.
Wonderful. Thanks for that one, Kez. So I guess from our experience, some of the most common questions that we receive are around savings. And so I wanted to first ask you, how does actually having solar, so how does having solar panels on the roof of your home lead to saving money?
Yeah, great question. So that's the main question that we get around how it actually saves you money. So the way it saves you money is by trying to use as much of your power during the day as possible. So if you can shift what you're using at night to the daytime, so setting timers on your dishwasher, washing machine, cooking and cleaning, and now with most of us in lockdown, that's probably a lot easier to do than it was before. Doing what you can during the day, and that's coming from the solar. So you're being powered by your free, clean solar power system on your roof rather than drawing from the grid.
Great.
Okay.
So I'll just jump in with one quick one there, Anna. So what you're saying is rather than spending 33 cents every kilowatt hour during the day, you're saving all of that by using the free power that your system's producing.
And that 33 cents is roughly what most people in Victoria are paying on as an average.
Great, thanks.
Okay. So, Kez, what type of savings can people make on the electricity bills, roughly?
Yep. So typically you're looking around about 40 to 60% saving off your electricity bill. Obviously, once we look at everyone's bills, and we can do analysis on your bill to see what size system would be suited to that and how much the saving, and we can work out the savings for you.
Wonderful. And so on that kind of same track, what is the return on investment like? So obviously people are putting up an initial investment in solar and then they're seeing savings on their bill each quarter. So how long does it take to make up that money usually that you've initially invested in the system?
Sure. So the typical payback period is around that 3 to 5 year mark on a solar system. If you're looking at batteries to that, that could blow out to 10 years. So a lot of people generally at the moment, they're tending to go just for the solar only and adding a battery at some point in the future. So the benefit with our ones, well, most of the systems that we install, they're all battery ready. So you can hook up a battery at.
Okay. And how about the feed-in tariff? Like, how much could I make from the feed-in tariff if I installed solar?
Yeah, it's always a question I get a lot about the feed-in tariff. And I
Yeah.
always say people don't get too hooked up on the feed-in tariff. You've probably heard lots of stories about people getting 66 cents or high feed-in tariff from ages ago. That's not where you're making your money or making your saving. The way you're making your saving is by trying to use as much of that power during the day as possible, rather than paying that 33 cents during the day. You're using it from the solar during the day. But the feed-in tariff, to answer that, you're looking around about 10 to 12 cents. So it really doesn't make sense to feed that back into the grid. You want to use as much of that as you can during the day.
Okay.
Awesome. Thanks. And we'll talk about feed-in tariffs a little bit later on when we have some questions about expanding or adding to systems that people originally have already. But kind of keeping on the savings and money area, I wanted to ask you a little bit about the rebates that are available. So there are state government and there's also some federal government support. I was wondering if you could talk us through those different financial incentives that are available.
Sure. So you've got your federal government rebate. So that's a given. Everyone gets that based on the size of the system and your postcode. And you don't have to lift a finger for that. We include that within our quote and we automatically deduct that off the quote. So, and then you've got the Victorian government rebate. So there's two sides to the Victorian government rebate. There's the rebate as well as the no interest loan. Both of them are valued at $1,850. And that is a means tested one. So the two main criteria for that, as long as the house is worth less than $3 million and your combined household income is less than 180,000, then you'd be eligible for both the rebate and the no interest loan.
Okay. And Kez, do you have to apply for the federal state rebate?
The federal one, no. You don't have to lift a finger. There's no application for that whatsoever. But the Victorian one, there is a application process, and we can help guide you through that.
Wonderful.
And so on the quote is the federal rebate. What's it actually called? So.
Yep, it's a long-winded title, but we call it an STC. So it stands for Small Scale Technology Certificates. I don't know why the government came up with such a long-winded title to it, but you'll see them on the quotes as STCs.
Okay, great. Thank you. So when someone, what should someone expect from a phone consultation with Echo? So they call up and you start to do their quotes. So what's the process? So
before we get to the phone consultation, we always like for you, if you can provide us with photos of your electricity bill, your switchboard, your meter, a couple of photos of the roof from the ground looking up. We're not asking you to climb on your roof. And with that information, it does allow us to give you a more rounded solution rather than just picking up the phone and talking to you over the phone with your bill. We can do that, but not looking at the full picture. So if you are looking for an accurate quote, then we will ask for those photos. But part of the consultation is we work out what it is you're looking to achieve by having solar. Is it environmental reasons? Is it, you're looking to add more to your home, you're extending? Is it just purely about saving money on your bill? So we work with you for a solution tailored to you. We don't just look at your roof and, fill up your roof with panels. It's just about working out what's right for your circumstances.
Okay, great.
And so when you do those consultations, I know you mentioned it briefly, what are some of the things that might come up that might be an issue for someone? So are there any roof types in terms of, tiles or slate or the kind of angle of a roof, anything that might impact someone's ability to proceed with having solar installed? Yeah,
there's a number of different factors that can affect whether we can do the job or not. Slate is a big one that we can't do, unfortunately. Steep roof, so anything over 35 degrees. Most people don't know the angles of their roof. Can't really blame them, but we can pretty much work that out from our satellite imagery and Google Street View. There's other issues around switchboards, asbestos. If you've got a number of different meters, where you're looking at having the panels, what shading issues there are. So there's a number of different factors that we would need to look at to determine whether it A, can be done, and B, what the solution is for it.
So if I have an old switchboard and needed to be upgraded to install solar, are you able to help with that, or should I go and get an electrician to do it for me?
We always recommend to get an electrician, a local electrician, to upgrade that switchboard for a number of reasons. One, our guys tend to charge a little bit more to upgrade a switchboard because they are Clean Energy Council accredited and they're A grade with no WorkSafe infringements. And having a local electrician, one, it's probably going to be less cost, so it's more economical to do that. And you've got a local electrician that if there was any issues with the switchboard, they warranty it. So we always recommend that. But what we suggest is if you provide us with a photo of the switchboard, we can pretty much tell you up front whether any work needs to be done to it prior to you making a decision on the solar.
Okay, thank you. And can we install solar if we have large trees on our property or our neighbours? Is that possible?
Look, again, it's case by case. You might have tall trees with a large canopy and they're still seeing sunlight through. If you know, we'll look at, so the benefit of our satellite imagery, we can look through different times of the year and different months and see what the shading impact is. And we do that shade analysis to work out whether it's viable or not. If it's not viable because, you know, 3/4 of the year your house is in shade, then we will tell you it's not worth doing because you're just not going to see any benefit from it. And then we've got solutions around that, which we can touch on later as well.
Okay, great.
Wonderful. And so you touched on this a little bit when you were talking about the phone consultation, Kez. I wonder, is there any more detail you can add just to the question on how do you decide what size system to install?
Yep, good question. So in terms of determining what size system, the way we normally look at it is we look at your bill and we say, okay, this is what your usage profile is. What I talk about with usage profile, on a bill, you'll see a graph, and most bills have a graph, and that gives us between 12 and 24 months worth of your usage profile. And it has your average daily usage on there in kWh. So everyone can grab out their bill, or you can have a look, and then we can work with you to size the system based on that. And as a rule of thumb, if you've got, say, for example, your usage is around 24 kilowatt hours a day, you're looking at between 20 and 24 panels to cover that usage. It's around about 1 panel per kilowatt hour on average.
Wonderful. All right. And so one of the final questions that we had listed here before we get to the questions that have been coming through on the phone here, and please, if any other questions have been coming up as you've been listening, please text them through. We're going to take a break in a few minutes to have a look through those questions and address them. But one of the questions that we do get frequently is, can you add panels or a battery to a pre-existing system? And is that a good idea?
Yep. So I'll address the battery side of that first. We can add a battery to an existing system. There's a number of things that we have to consider around if you've got a premium feed-in tariff, if the system's too small, enough power coming from it to push into a battery. So again, we need to work that out with you. Adding to an existing solar system, again, can be a bit complex. It can be done. But again, we need to look at everyone's visual circumstances around their house as to what their setup is, so that if we can add to an existing solar system.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Thanks for that, Kez. So I think we might take a short break and I'll check the text messages that have come through. We also recommend standing up and having a stretch. We're often all spending a lot more time in front of screens these days. So I'm going to share some solar related cartoons that I've found that you can have a look at in the 2-minute break while I go through these questions, and we'll be back with you shortly. All right, welcome back. So we've had quite a few questions come through. Please excuse me, I will be looking down at the phone to start working through those. Quite a few of them are really great questions. A few questions that have come through are about very specific circumstances that might relate to some unique situations in your home. So if that is the case, I recommend registering for the program. That will put you in touch with one of the renewable energy consultants at Echo, and you'll be able to go through those more specific, nuanced questions with a consultant. If we don't get the chance to answer your questions in the next half an hour or so, I will be noting them all down and answering them all in an email that I'll be sending to you in the next couple of days. So rest assured, we will get through all the questions. I'll pick now some that are most relevant to a whole audience. So one that we'll start with is, I'll just jump back here. So someone's asked, why do people get a 60-cent tariff? Are these old tariffs and can you still get them? Kaz, do you want to explain, if you can, a bit of the history of why we have a 12-cent feed-in tariff rate currently and it has in the past been higher?
Yeah, good question. Look, the government really wanted, well, God, probably 9-10 years ago now, to encourage people to get solar. So in their infinite wisdom, they said, let's do an awesome feed-in tariff, which was around about 60 cents. And I think they quickly realized their mistake as people were feeding more back into the grid and people were getting credits on their electricity bill and kind of cashing in on that. So it was, I think, a bit of a loophole that they've, over the years, slowly weaned people off. But yeah, look, if you've still got it, my recommendation, unless your system's at the end of its life, warranty's out, or it's not doing what it needs to do for you, I would stick with the 60 cents feed-in tariff. But yeah, I'm sorry to say, but no 60 cents feed-in tariff out there at the moment that you can get.
And when do those, I believe in the next few years, those higher tariffs will be ending? Is it, can you confirm, is it 2024 that those higher?
Exactly. I think Anna knows the exact
Yeah,
date.
it is 2024.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And so your answer there, Kez, helped, I guess, leads into one of the next questions that have been texted in. So this question is a two-part question, and we'll get to the second part about the specific products that we use. But this person wants to know what the lifetime, I guess, the lifespan is of our panels and inverters, and what the warranties are that are associated with them.
Yep. Did you want me to go into that now, or are we going to look at that?
We'll look at the products later, but perhaps if you could talk more generally about lifespan of the products. Yeah.
Sure. So your panels come with a 25-year performance warranty and a 12-year product. We do have panels that are both a 25-year product and a 25-year performance. And then the inverters are generally between 10 and 25 years as well.
Would you be able to break down a bit more what you mean between product and performance?
Yep. So your product is the actual physical structure, like the framework of the panel, the silicon, the framework, and then the performance is around saying that this system is still going to perform as good as it did on the day that it was installed, and maybe degrade by 5 to 6% each year. Because obviously anything in the sun is going to degrade. If you had your washing out in the sun for 20 years, it's going to degrade. So it's just saying that performance is dropping by around about 5 to 6% each year.
Wonderful, thanks. And so another question that have come through, it's relating back to something we've already spoken about. Someone's asked, can we explain how you calculate the payback period of 3 to 5 years? So what's the kind of maths behind those figures? And Anna, feel free to jump in with some answers if you want to as well.
Sure. Look, it's not really rocket science that we put behind it. We do make a number of assumptions if we haven't got your full bill details, but we punch in your rate that you're paying on your electricity, your daily supply charge. We also include if you've got any direct dedicated loads or controlled loads. We punch that into our calculator, and basically what it looks at is if you remain without solar for, say, 20 years, what your electricity bill will look like. And then it says, well, if a system's, for argument's sake, $5,000, and you've spent $5,000 in 5 years on electricity, it would have paid itself off in 5 years. So that's the simple answer, I guess, to it.
Yeah, perfect. Anna, did you want to?
I just wanted to more talk about the tariffs. You just mentioned then some people have controlled load tariffs. So do you have some people that are trying to reduce their bills, but if they've got underfloor heating or their hot water service has that controlled load,
Yep.
will solar help reduce the cost related to that, or what do you find?
Yep. So if you've got you'll see it on your bill as a dedicated load or a controlled load, or you've got slab heating or hot water. Now, when you do get solar, depending on the distributor, they'll switch you to one rate rather than two. In most cases, you'll lose your dedicated circuit. So, for example, if we're talking about slab heating, the way you'd want to have the solar to work is to have a low setting on that heating to come on during the day, because that's being powered by the solar, and then reduce your nighttime usage. Or if you are going to get a two-rate deal with your electricity provider, is trying to get a good evening rate, so that you're using the solar during the day and a cheaper rate at night.
Okay, great. Thanks, Kez.
And I'll jump in with my own question here before I get back to the messaged questions, just based on what you said. So if someone has solar installed or gets solar installed through the program, do you recommend they look for a new electricity supplier? And at what stage do you think someone should consider changing electricity providers?
Yep. So we always recommend that after you've got your solar system installed, we do all the paperwork, we send that off to your distributor and your retailer. Once you've seen that you've got your first bill with your first feed-in credit on there, we generally recommend that's a good time to look at switching provider. And I believe the Solar Savers website has a link to the government's own Energy Compare, and I highly recommend that. I use that myself, and it's always a good way to start to work out that you're getting the best rates for your electricity.
That's true. Thanks, Kez. We've also got a little video that sort of explains how to use that Victoria Energy Compare website. So it's a great tool to put in all your discounts and everything in there, because it looks at your actual bill and the prices that you pay and compares them. So it's a great resource.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. Thanks both. So we're jumping around a bit with these questions here. So keeping you on your toes, Kez. We've got a question here about batteries. And so someone wants to know, does having a battery let you use energy at night?
Let you use energy at night was the question. Is that right for the battery?
Yeah.
Yeah, correct. That's the short answer. It allows you to use the power from your battery at night. You don't disconnect from the grid. So if the battery gets drained, then you're still pulling down from the grid or your electricity provider, should I say. So yes, you can use it at night.
Wonderful. So this is a bit of a longer question, but I think it might be worth discussing. So I'll try and read it out to you. So someone here who lives in the Banyule region, and they've got a heritage issue with their house regarding altering the appearance from the street. The street facing the roof is the only viable option. Do you have any experience with planning permission for solar panels? So Kaz, from your experience, have you come across many heritage issues, and how have you managed those, and what are the outcomes been?
Yes, so heritage can be an issue. What we generally do is either speak to the council or I guess the benefit of Solar Savers, you can assist them. I think we've sent a couple to you recently where there was heritage overlay or issues around the tree that was in the reserve, and they were having issues with that. So I believe Solar Savers can support you there with helping with the permits. Maybe you guys would like to talk more on that with heritage overlays and heritage permits.
Yeah, we've had some councils obviously have more stringent rules than others, but definitely the one from if you're near a park or the street that you can't see the panels. So we can link you up to the right person at council and help you through that inquiry. But normally if you can have it offsetting so no one can see, it should be okay. It's just depending on the pitch of your roof. So we'll probably have to look at more of your roof to find out. But yeah, there's no sort of one answer that resolves everyone's issues, but we can definitely help with the questioning.
Great. So there's a combination of ways to approach that. Help from Echo in terms of how the system's designed, in terms of pitch and where the panels are, might need to be a bit more creative, and some assistance from us connecting you with the people at council to help get that information.
Yeah.
Perfect. So I've got a question here that's asking, is there a limit as to how many houses can have solar in one street or in a particular area? So I think this is perhaps alluding to some concerns around limits of exporting. Kaz, did you want to speak to this question a little bit?
Yeah, good question. So yeah, we are finding that actually. So a lot of the distributors, or you might have heard them as DBs. So the way to know who your distributor is, you look at your bill and you say you're with Energy Australia as your retailer. You'll see on your bill where it says where you report faults or blackouts. You'll see that it'll either be predominantly is going to be AusNet, Powercore, United, Gemini. Now, AusNet and Powercore, they're the ones that we have to get approval from. So AusNet, City Power and Powercore, they're the three that we need to get approval from. And we are finding recently, as more and more people are getting solar on their street, we're getting knocked back. What they're saying is that it is either they're restricting what you're allowed to put back into the grid, or they're just saying flat out zero export. Now, it doesn't mean we can't install solar. What that does mean is that we can install solar, but you really want to use all of that during the day where you can, because anything excess, you're not exporting back to the grid. So you're not getting that feed-in tariff there. So that's when the conversation around batteries comes in, because it doesn't allow you to export anything into the grid to get anything for it. So you may as well add a battery at that point and store that to then use at night. So there is solutions for it. It's just what your level of investment that you're willing to make in a solar and or battery solution is.
Yeah.
Thanks. Are you finding that you're getting zero export limitation, or more just reduced exporting?
It's really a mixed bag.
Okay.
So there's no, I'm finding actually with City Power and Powercore, so City Power and Powercore predominantly in central Melbourne, and your AusNets, your Geminis and Uniteds are probably more for the demographic that's on tonight, I would believe. So you're fortunate if you're with United Gemini, because there's no pre-approval needed there. But with AusNet and Powercore, it really is a mixed bag. We get one or two a week where it's either zero export, or it's no longer 5 kilowatt export, it's a 3.5 or a 2.5 kilowatt. So
Okay.
it's doable, but with restrictions. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
I did get a little distracted looking through questions here. I wasn't sure if you answered as part of that explanation, because if someone does have, I think you might have, if someone does have a limit on their export, you're able to install an export limiter. Is that what you were explaining? Yeah. Wonderful. Yeah. Wonderful. Thanks. So I've got a question here about maintenance of panels. So yes. Are there any ongoing maintenance fees? And maybe, I know we spoke about warranties before, but actually a bit more about how long panels actually last. So beyond the 25-year performance warranty, how long are these panels expected to be still producing, and what's the maintenance like?
Yep, sure. So in terms of maintenance, really, the technology has advanced considerably over the years. So the fortunate thing about panels is that they come out of the factory so that they can self-clean effectively. So the angle of the roof that if you put them at and we always generally install panels at a certain angle. We don't like to lay them flat, because at that point you get water pooling on them, you can get dust build up. Having that angle on the panels allows the rain, the wind to wash away the dirt off the panels. So there isn't really a maintenance needed on the system. There is companies out there that do that. My personal opinion is that technology is so good now, it actually doesn't really need maintenance. What you can do is, if you really wanted to, is you can access your roof with a hose. You can always hose them down. And in terms of the product warranty, so the system will last 20, 25 years. We get contacted by customers that have had system on their roof for, in excess of 30 years, it's still producing for them. So, you're looking at a 20, 25 year investment. This is not a short-term investment. You've got to look at it as something that's going to pay itself off typically within 5 years, but last in excess of 20, 25 years.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Thanks. We've got so many great questions coming through, and this one's a bit more of a scenario question. So I'll read it out and we'll see how we go with it. So someone's asked that we have a granny flat in the back behind the house that's not connected to the house. Can both the house and the granny flat be connected to one solar system? So can the power be used across the granny flat and the home?
Yep, a good question. So there's a number of parts to that, which we probably need to look individually at that one. So, I have questions around how many meters have you got? Is there 1 meter on the house, 1 meter on the granny flat? Is there a subworld on the granny flat? Is there a main switchboard? So it's not a short and sweet answer, unfortunately. We would need photos of your switchboard and your meter to do a bit of analysis beforehand. One, to see if the distributors will allow us to do it. And secondly, whether it's viable to get the power from the granny flat to the house or the house to the granny flat. So yeah, sorry, I couldn't give a straight answer on that one.
No, but there's room to work with it. There's the ability to kind of look into it and see if that can be done, and it's possible in some situations.
Yeah.
Wonderful. All right, and so we've got a question now about monitoring, which we haven't really spoken about too much, and we will talk about monitoring in a little bit more detail when we look at the specific products that Echo use, which we will do before the end of the webinar. But someone here is asking, can you monitor the performance of individual panels?
Yep. So that question is leading to a system that we call, or there is out there called SolarEdge. It allows you to actually monitor each individual panel. So there is a solution out there that we offer for that.
Okay. And related to that question, the same person's asking, so if one panel is performing low, does that downgrade the whole system? So
yep. So if you've got the SolarEdge solution, and the SolarEdge will be suited to homes where there is shading issues, or you want to see exactly how much each panel is producing, that won't affect the performance of the whole system. Whereas the string system, which is, I guess we'll come on to that, but a string system where each panel is put in a series or in a group, if one panel is shaded, it impacts the production of the rest of the system.
Perfect. Thanks. And I think going back to our questions around exporting, we've got a couple more that have come through. So the same person has asked, does three-phase power introduce any further complications and costs?
Short answer, no. You can actually add more to a three-phase. So if you were looking for a larger system, you can add a larger solar system onto a three-phase.
Wonderful. All right. So let me just have a look through here and see if we've missed any. So we've had a question here about people who are, I guess I can answer this one, people who aren't in a participating council, can they still call Echo for a quote? The answer is yes, you can recommend Echo. Coming through Solar Savers, you have those extra benefits of having myself and Anna here to answer questions, and there is a small financial incentive coming through the program. There's a bulk buy, so the prices are about 5% lower coming through the program. But in terms of having a trusted installer that's been vetted and evaluated, Echo are still a recommendation. So for anyone who has friends or family who live outside of our councils, you absolutely can recommend Echo to them. Absolutely.
Just to add to that, Anastasia, I would say that on this call, definitely go through Solar Savers, because you've got that peace of mind going through the council's bulk buy program, and you do get that discount as well. So rather than coming direct to us, I would highly recommend anyone that's on the call today, this evening, or recommended, go through Solar Savers.
And also just on there with, if you are a pension card holder, there's also a further incentives for that as well. So in addition to the roughly 5% bulk buy discount.
Yeah.
So I've got a few more questions here that's come through from someone that I'll put to you both. So someone has asked that if you want a 4.4 kilowatt system, would you need a 3 kilowatt or a 5 kilowatt inverter, and why?
Yep. So the question is around what capacity a 3 kilowatt can take. So if you're looking at 4.4 kilowatts worth of solar, a 3 kilowatt inverter won't work. There is limitation on the size or how much solar a inverter can take. So I would be recommending probably not a 5 or a 3, probably a 4 kilowatt inverter there. So unless you're looking at adding more panels in the future, then a 5 kilowatt inverter is the way to go.
And just on that, okay, so the output of panels, I know they keep changing a lot, they keep improving. So what's the output of the panels that you're installing at the moment? Just to get an idea. Yep.
Yeah, we've got a range at the moment depending on what you're looking for, but it's anything between a 3 to 370 watt
Yep.
panel.
Okay, thanks.
Perfect. And so jumping back a little bit to Solar Edge, which you were talking about before, I've got a question here. Someone who's obviously done a little bit of research on their on solar already. They're wanting to know what is more worth it, or perhaps what's the differences between microinverters and Solar Edge, particularly in areas where there is shading. So would you be able to talk to the difference between those and why you'd pick one over the other?
Yep. So with Solar Edge and the microinverters, the reason we've decided to go with Solar Edge over microinverters is we looked at the technology for microinverters, and it was something that's been around since around about the 90s. And what Solar Edge, they looked at the technology and they said, well, look, there's things that we like about this, but the thing is that we think that we can improve. And that's why we've decided to go with them, because they've actually said, look, there's safety features in this that we can use. You can turn off the power from the source with a Solar Edge system. So if there, for whatever reason, there's a fire at your house, if the firemen were to come over, they can turn off that solar system. And with a Solar Edge system, it has a safe cutout on it. Whereas I believe, and I don't quote me on this because I'm not too familiar with too much around the microinverters because we don't sell them, is that safety cutout feature is not there on an Enphase or a microinverter solution.
Great, thanks for that. So I've got a few questions coming in about different types of houses or properties that you might install on. So someone's asking here, what about multi-story units? And
Yep.
So do we install on flats and apartments? And are there any issues around it with body corporate? So there's a few things in that question. If we can maybe, as a group, we can unpack that question. Anna, did you want to start?
Yeah, I suppose with our program at this stage, we're just offering for more, we don't do apartment dwellings. It's more for the body corporates being involved there. Yeah, it's quite a process that, so we're just sticking with the single dwellings. It is possible, I believe, to go down that path, but you may be able to get solar for the common areas, but it's pretty tricky to get solar for each individual unit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have anything further to add there, Kez?
Yeah, I was going to say, so we really only do up to double story. Anything beyond that becomes challenging, and the cost can be prohibitive to be able to do solar. And body corporates and apartments and that we generally don't install on, unfortunately. Just a business decision that we've made there.
Yeah, we have had some installations come through on units where they have a joined roof, but is that correct? We've had a couple come through that have a shared roof.
Done that.
Yeah.
We've had challenges around body corporates or owners corp where it can get very long-winded and decisions. Okay. So as long as all your decisions are made through the body corporate and owners corp, and there isn't some weird and wonderful restrictions they have, then we can work with you. But we have had some weird and wonderful restrictions come from body corp and owners corp. We just can't comply with some of those. Unfortunately.
Yeah. We might jump in with one more question before I think we talk about products and pricing. So someone has missed your answer about how many kilowatts each panel produced. I think your microphone cut out a little bit. So would you mind repeating?
Okay. Sorry.
No,
technology. So yeah, you're looking at roughly, if you're using one panel produces around about 1 kilowatt hour on average. So if you're, say on your bill, you're using around 20 kilowatt hours a day, you'd be probably looking around about 20 panels.
Was there a question about the output of the panels? Was it like 270 watts or 300 watts? Is that what the question?
Sorry,
yes, that was the question. Yeah.
So the output, so.
Yeah, so maybe there's a bit of confusion between output and capacity. So
yeah.
You've got kilowatts, which is your kW. That's the size of like the wattage of the panel. And then you've got your kilowatt hours, which is your kWh. That's how much it produces. So you might have a 370 watt panel, but it produces a 1.5 kilowatt hours of power, for example.
Wonderful, thanks. And we've had a few questions come through that if we get a chance to address at the end, we might do. Otherwise, I'll write a bit more of an extended response to these in the email. Questions about the sustainability of panels in terms of their longevity and recycling them and end of life and recycling. I've done quite a bit of research into this, and unless Kez or Anna want to add to it, it's a bit blurry still what the current situation is in Melbourne. There are a few initiatives that are starting to, and Australia-wide actually, get off to try and recycle panels. We do see people selling them sometimes on, you know, on Gumtree or eBay for kind of backyard projects, which is one way to give, you know, old panels a new lease on life. But there is still work to be done and progress to be made in that space. I'm not sure if Anna or Kez want to add to that question or add to my response at all.
Okay.
Yeah, so it is something that is a bit, like you said, bit grey and a bit sporadic, but now the manufacturers of panels, there's a lot more pressure on them to work out how to deal with end of life of their panels. So we're working with a number of them on how we can deal with our end of life panels, but that doesn't answer the question about people that have got existing systems out there. And you're right, I do see people selling them on Gumtree and eBay and Facebook Marketplace, or donating them to charities so that they can continue their life somewhere else. But yeah, it is something that unfortunately the industry has had to seriously look at. It's watch this space at the moment, I would say.
Definitely. There are some initiatives that I found, which I can share in the email if people are interested, in Germany and other parts of Europe, where factories have been set up to pull apart and take out all the usable parts of panels. So quite a thorough recycling process. But unfortunately, we don't have anything currently to that scale in Australia or Melbourne. But yeah, definitely something that the industry is looking into, it seems.
Okay.
Anna.
Yeah, so I thought before we finish up, I thought it'd be good to have a bit of a discussion about the products you work with, Kez. So I know we've talked a little bit about the Solar Edge, but would you be able to talk us through just the following slides? We'll just have a look at that.
Yep. So hopefully everyone can see that. So the panel provider that we work with, we've got a couple there, but the main one is Qcells, and that's a German engineered panel made in South Korea and in China. So that is a Clean Energy Council accredited product. That's an ombudsman that oversees the industry. And all our products, they are tier 1 and CEC approved. So tier 1 is simply like a AAA rating by the banks. It's a Bloomberg finance rating. The banks are willing and able to lend them money. And they all come with Australian product and performance warranties. So Qcells, they come with a 12-year product and a 25-year performance. We've also got SunPower, which is a 25-year and 25-year 25-year product and 25-year performance warranty.
Okay, great. And the inverters, yeah, this is the Solus.
So we've got 3 inverters to choose from. So this is our entry-level inverter that we offer. So this is what we call your budget-conscious investment with your basic monitoring. There's no Wi-Fi built into this. It is literally a screen on the front of it with some flashing lights that tells you what it needs to do. Does come with a 10-year Australian warranty, and it is manufactured in China. So it's a good option, reliable entry-level inverter for those that are looking for a solar system that's going to save them money, but they're not too fussed about monitoring or seeing what the system's doing. And then the next level up is your Fronius inverter. So this is a European-made inverter made in Austria. So again, this has got inbuilt Wi-Fi with monitoring and reporting capabilities. Again, it's a 10-year warranty on this one.
Okay, great. Right, so people also ask obviously about the pricing. I know it's unique to everyone's home depending on what they need, but could you tell us a bit about some of the standard prices for these systems?
Yep, sure. You got the next slide there, or?
Yeah, I've got that one.
There it is.
Yes. Thanks, Kez.
Perfect. So I'll start from the bottom. I guess most people are looking at larger systems nowadays rather than smaller systems. So as you can see, they're a 6.6 kilowatt system, which is anything between 18 to 20 panels on your roof with that entry level inverter, the Solis, is 6,995. Now, that doesn't include the Victorian state government rebate, so you can take another 1,850 off that if you take the rebate, plus a further 1,850 if you're taking out the interest-free loan. Obviously, you've still got to pay off that interest-free loan, but it just spreads out the payments. Going out to the monitoring inverter with the Fronius, the European-made one, then that goes to 8,294. Again, you need to take the big rebate as well as the interest-free loan out of that as well.
But the federal government STCs are included in these prices. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
Okay. So we're getting close to finishing up. There haven't been too many more questions come through. I've got one here that I thought I'd put to you, Kez. If you do get a new system installed and then you decide you want to have some more panels added to it,
yep,
you know, not too later down the track, what would you say to that? How would Echo be able to manage that?
Yeah, fun enough, I had that conversation with a customer today, and I said to them, look, if you're going to make a decision on this, it's something that you kind of want to do once and not touch again for 20, 25 years. So if you're thinking of going larger now, the expense of doing it, 2 years down the track to add another 2 panels doesn't make economic sense. You're far better to do, if you want to go larger now. If you've got the space, and we can work, I can give you, so for example, I can give you the numbers around, if you put 18 panels versus 22 panels, for argument's sake, and say, look, it's about $400 or $500 difference. You may as well spend that little bit extra now rather than down the track, because then you've got the call out charge, you've got the reconnection in terms of, sorry, not the reconnection, but the call out fee from the Energy Safe Victoria to come and sign off the system. So it doesn't make economic sense to add 2 to 4 panels down the track. You're better off doing that now than worrying about it later.
Thanks. And on a related note, this is definitely something I tell people who come through the program, but if someone comes to have a consultation with you, are you able to prepare a couple of different quotes for them? So say they wanted to compare a smaller system, a larger one, and one with batteries, for example. Is that something that you're able to do at that consultation stage?
Yep, 100%. So we can suit what it is you're looking for. If you're looking for 2 or 3 quotes, 5 quotes even, we're happy to do that.
Wonderful. Okay, so I've got one more question about batteries here. So we might take this one and then that might be it for tonight. There are a few questions that we didn't get to. In here, but I will try address them in the email that we'll send to you in a couple of days' time at the end of the webinar. So someone wants to know what sort of what are the extra costs for adding a battery to the system? So I know there are different ways you can set the system up, the battery ready and battery compatible. So if someone was looking to add a battery in 2 to 3 years' time, what would that look like? Yeah,
so at the moment, batteries are still pretty expensive. So you'd be looking at adding anything between $8,000 to $20,000 onto a solar system with a battery. Obviously, depending on the size of the battery, the smaller the battery, you're looking at the $8,000 mark, anything up to $20,000 for adding to a solar system.
Okay, and does that involve adding another inverter to the system if you're adding a battery?
Yep, can be. So again, it's depending on what setup you've got. So we can add it to an existing system, depending on the type of inverter that you've got.
Wonderful. Okay, Anna, was there any further questions that you wanted to ask or?
Someone came up before about connection fees. So what roughly are the connection fees when I choose to install solar?
Yep, so I think you're referring to the distributor's charges. Is that what you're referring to, Anna? Yep. So once your solar system's connected to the grid, you may see a one-off charge from your distributor, or that will be bundled into your next electricity bill. That can be anything between $50 to $150. Mm-hmm. We have been noticing recently, if you've got 2 meters, for example, or you've got a separate meter for a slab heating or controlled load, they're charging what's called a truck roll fee, so that for them to actually come out and physically change those meters, that could be anything up to from $300 up to $1,000. So again, that's why it's so important to have those photos of your switchboard and your meter before we start consulting, so that we can identify that from the beginning and pre-warn you, and it's worth having that conversation at the beginning rather than down the track.
Yep, sounds good. Okay.
And something that just reminded me of that I might add, we've done a few bill comparisons for people, their bills before solar and after solar. And sometimes people look at the first bill and think, oh, I'm not seeing the savings that I would expect. And it's some of these charges that Kez has talked about. And also that after installing solar, like we mentioned earlier, sometimes your tariff or your supply charge can be increased by a small amount. So it's worth waiting. You'll get that first bill and it might not be what you expect. Perhaps waiting to another bill. And then at that stage, if your new tariffs are higher than your previous tariffs, it's like we recommended a good time then to do the energy compare with the state government and perhaps find a deal that is better suited to your new situation. All right, so Anna or Kez, are there any final comments that you want to add tonight? The phone line's kind of quietened down, so I think we've hopefully answered most people's questions. Anything either of you would like to add?
Not at this stage. I think we've covered a lot of questions, but as I said, if anyone has any more, we can, best is to contact us. You can hop onto our website and register, or give us a call, and we can, provide the answers to your questions. Help you that way.
Perfect. All right, so I want to say a big thank you. Oh, sorry, Kez.
I just noticed in the chat someone else that asked about repeating the kilowatt size to number of panels. So it's roughly, rule of thumb, 1 panel to 1 kilowatt hour, kWh.
Perfect. Thanks, Kez. And so I wanted to end by saying a big thank you to you, Kez, for joining us today and sharing all your knowledge about solar and the solar industry. I hope for everyone in the audience that the questions today have been useful in your decision whether to install solar or not. As Anna mentioned, if you have any further questions, you can email them to us. You should all have our email address, but it will be on the next slide. You can give us a call, or you can register for the program. And if you have any feedback on this webinar, it was our first for the program, feel free to send us an email or a text to the number and let us know what you think. But otherwise, thanks everyone for joining us. Thank you for your questions. Take care and good night.
Yep, thank you. Thanks, Anastasia and Kez. And thanks to everyone. Yeah, so please hop on our website and click on your council to register. If not, give us a call. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.